Good evening. Welcome to the Finance Committee meeting on Thursday, February 20th, 2025 at 6 p.m. in the Ayer Town Hall. This is a hybrid meeting. This meeting of the Finance Committee will be held in person at the location provided on this notice. Members of the public are welcome to attend this in-person meeting. Please note that while an option for remote attendance and/or participation via Zoom is being provided as a courtesy to the public, this meeting hearing will not be suspended or terminated if technological problems interrupt the virtual broadcast, unless otherwise required by law. Members of the public with particular interest in a specific item on this agenda should make plans for in-person versus virtual attendance accordingly. This meeting will be live on Zoom. The people may access the proceedings by joining Zoom, meeting ID 978-772-8220, or by calling 929-205-6099. For additional information about remote participation, please contact Carly Antonellis, Assistant Town Manager at atm@ayer.ma.us, or 978-772-8220, extension 100, prior to the meeting. Okay, I'd like to call the meeting to order. First item is review and approval of the February 12th meeting minutes. We don't have a copy ready right now, so we will put that item off to our next meeting. Then moving on, the next two items are our usual updates on the Capital Planning Committee and Rate Review Committee. As there was no meetings since our last meeting of these two groups, though no updates that I know of on either one. Okay. All right. Well, then we will proceed in a moment or two with our presentation. We're just waiting for our computer to catch up. Because the fire department is going to do their presentation, but we're going to have a PowerPoint presentation as soon as the computer is up.
Is it a Windows 11?
It's Windows. So,
if it's going to be a while, then should we just continue on?
I would say you can start because I think I can get it up in like a minute. So.
Oh, okay.
Well, I'm just one procedural note or update is Robert did send an update by email to all of us on the revised budget. So we received and started talking about the first revision last meeting, and he sent a new draft 2 just this afternoon. So between now and our next meeting, you can start taking a look at that. He did put some notes in that email. And our next meeting will be, just looking ahead here, and we'll touch on this before we close, on March 6th. Ah, okay. All right, we'll come back to that. All right, we are all caught up here. We are going to have a presentation with on the fire department with Chief Johnston and Deputy Chief Janikevitz. Thank you very much for coming, and
thanks for having us.
The floor is yours.
All right, great. So between myself and the deputy, we have a short PowerPoint presentation. So as you look, the first one that you'll see is the omnibus budget that we submitted. And as you can see, what we're here for is that is up 18.82% over last year. And so the next few slides will explain the drivers. So if you have questions as we go through them, please ask them. So as you look, when we start building the budget at the fire department, we look at what we would just call them regular annual increases. Those could be step increases for non-union people, degrees that some of the union members that we get them. We added, the admin we have now is at 35 hours. Her intentions are to leave in the near future, so we felt that that would be, and we talked about this before, a 40-hour position rather than 35, so we got the okay to go ahead and add that in there, you know, so we'd have it in there. She would work them until she ends up retiring, and then I think it's in a more of attractive position being at 40 hours, and she is our only admin position for the fire department. It also includes some adjustments to the OT averages, which we can come back and explain that. We had, as we explained last year, we gave the call department a $1 per hour wage adjustment, and this year we moved forward with the new wage scale. And also on a couple of the other lines on the services side, we had to increase some SCBA line due to the SCBA, which are self-contained breathing apparatus, being out of warranty, so that increased quite, and we had some miscellaneous increased vehicle costs. So just, you know, a quick go through the budget, we end up being at 2.03% with just those adjustments to start off the budget. Do you have any questions on that one to start? Nothing? Okay. So if we go to the next one, the personal protective gear. So this is the gear the firefighters wear. Back in 2021, we were able to purchase with ARPA funds an entire set of turnout gear for each member of the department. And those have a 10-year lifespan to them. Each firefighter has 2 sets of PPE. And so what we need to do is we need to get back in. Prior to that, we always had this built into our budget where we bought up to 6 sets back then probably, but it's a little different now. So what we did is add another 26,000, I think it was, into that. We always kept 5,000 in that account when we dropped it back down. What's that, Jeremy?
It was for repairs.
Yeah, for
5,000.
repairs. We had a new set of gear, say a new member hired, and we were able to adjust, you know, that set of gear for like $800. It's stuff like that. Things break. People need gloves, hoods. You know, it's just the regular miscellaneous repairs and replacement costs at that 5,000. So we always had that. So we add another 26, and that line item up is to about 34. So that increase of putting the PPE back into our budget was another just over 1% increase to our operating costs.
Yeah, those are coming out to just over $5,000 a set to purchase a head-to-toe coat, pants, helmet, boots, gloves, hood. So they're coming out to just over $5,200 now.
And like I said, those last 10 years. The next one is the, yep, go ahead.
Real quick question. So I'm looking the bar chart here. So you're adding the expenses as we go along?
As we go, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, so the 2.5 is this year, and then you had, it was like 2%, right, for the first. The regular annual increases was an increase of 2%, and then the PPE is an increase of about 1.04, and now you're into Neshoba Valley.
Okay.
You need two even to get to that 50.
Yeah, so the blue is the FY25, and then it's just all the increases, you know, for new this year.
Yeah, no, interesting way of showing that. I like that.
All the credit to the deputy. I had it going the other way, and he's like, I think we should build it up, so he won. So this one, the Neshoba Valley closure impact, what we did is, and even had the finance manager agreed, so we have a real short sample of what we think would be the impact funds, meaning what we think we would need for additional funds. And most of this is just to do with callbacks when we have multiple ambulance calls of having members either come back to assist with that call or come back and man the station for the next call. So with the short sample we've had, you know, over the last 6 months, our best guess would be to add $50,000 to the overtime account. And I know the question came up by Ms. Conley last week, so I can just address that now. So the difference is we added 50 to our budget, which doesn't increase any labor costs, meaning we don't add any additional labor. It just offsets the overtime part. And what we've done is the fire chiefs throughout the 13 communities, we've approached the state and asked for $350,000, but that would actually add some additional labor to our staff on a temporary basis if the state were to come through with that money. It's really in the really early stages, so what that money would do is give us 2 additional members for a period to be determined, whether it's 8 hours, 10 hours, 12 hours, to help mostly manage our EMS side of things. It would, we had 350,000, I mean, yeah, 250 in capital that was given to us. We bought a fly car, which is a non-transport ambulance. It's essentially a Chevy Suburban with paramedic equipment in the back. So we don't have the, we'll use that equipment, but we don't have any additional staff. So that just gives us another tool in our toolbox. If the state were to come forward with some money to help us with some labor till the hospital gets situated, then we would have hopefully a couple additional personnel to like either be on an ambulance or go into that additional non-transport ambulance.
Yeah, I think looking at Neshoba is just such a short sample for us. I can tell you what we're doing in minutes extra. We're doing about 15 minutes extra transport time, and then that closure is also causing us to stand around the hospitals for a longer period waiting for a bed, and then it's the return trips home, and we have a pretty good idea where we're transporting to, but there's a bunch of unknowns. Will the hospital in Ayer open? Will they open a standalone ER? And all those things are going to impact what our operations look like down the road. So we were trying not to make a giant ask for a transition without having the data. So this piece gives you, essentially the next fiscal year to collect some more data and at least survive the current impact and then figure it out from there.
Right, and I can assure like every avenue possible for on the state level, we pursue, you know what I mean? So we've been, to State House already, we've had some meetings, with some other state offices, so, it's moving forward, we just don't know what the ultimate outcome will be. But this, at least on the town side, will at least give us the overtime to have the members come back to fill those gaps in the short term. And like I said, that one's about 2% added to that, how we get 18% over, that's another 2% added on for that part of it. And then this year, the collective bargaining agreement with the firefighters union was up, and those negotiations started in late fall, and they concluded with an MOA last month. That covers the 17 career personnel. It's broken down as you see in the slideshow. And what that does improves starting wages, so we remain an attractive place to come. Paramedics are hard to come by, so we want to remain so like at a higher wage, so people will come back here, and it improves the EMS stipend to remain competitive on the market. So when they come here, they want to stay here as paramedic providers.
Yeah, we had a hire just recently for an individual that left, so it was kind of eye-opening to see the change we've had. Looking back historically, back in the 2016 range, we'd get 25, 30 applicants for a job, and then in the 21 for the grants, we had 4 positions open at once. We got somewhere in the neck of the woods of 16 applicants for 4 jobs back then. Last year, we got 3 applications for 1 job, none of them being paramedics, all of them being students. So it's been a dramatic shift. Some of it, I think, relates to us needing to play catch up to what base wages should look like for paramedics and firefighters, and that's what the contract focused on. The agreement that that they came to was, essentially focused on that first few years. We used to have a bunch of big steps in your first 2 years of employment, which meant you start really low. Comparatively, we were behind, a lot. But then you would get an 8% jump and then a 16% jump. So they've agreed to raise the floor a little and then smooth those jumps out over 4 years. So I'm hoping it helps in recruitment. Time will tell.
So it's it's not just that people coming into being firefighters and paramedics. It's not that the pool is just down necessarily. It's that
Probably a little of both.
Yeah, and I think post-COVID too, I think people left the field, there's just not as many, and it's a very competitive field now, and I think, this MOA keeps them, us competitive, where people would be saying, hey, I'm gonna apply to Ayer,
Yeah, I think you saw, during COVID, the school shut down for about a year and a half. So that has diminished the number of paramedics available. So now they're realistically coming in here and interviewing us. Like, where do I want to work? Who's got the best contract? Where can I jump around? Like, and that never was true for the fire service until recently, but that's just what we're dealing with at the moment. And so this will go a long way to putting us back. Certainly, it's not to the top of the range of our comparables, but it puts you back in the middle. Like, and I think that's where we always kind of lived, which has done well for us in the past.
Yeah, and we're not unique, Littleton has openings, Pepperell has openings, Paramedics, Westford has openings, so it's not unique, it's just it's a competitive field for the people we are looking for. And that one, the MOA adds another, just over 4% to the budget,
Just MOA means,
memorandum of agreement, so we've signed the contract, it's pending, approval at town meeting, yep,
thank you.
yep. And then which we've done over the last 3 years, the SAFER grant, which we've talked about a lot. As you can see, this year is what we would call the final installment, so we added another $240,000 to the budget. So what does that mean? And as you can see, over the last fiscal years from 23, 24, and 25, we've had some additional funds put into our operating budget. The grant ended on February 12th, just a week or so ago. So the town, for this fiscal year, fully funds them through the end of June. So the 240 picks up the rest of that from July 1st up till February 12th. And so next year, there's no more talk, hopefully, over the SAFER grant. That'll be in the operating budget as we speak. So that'll be the last of, and I can honestly tell you this, if we did not get that grant 3 years ago, I don't know how we would survive with the hospital closing, with only 3 personnel. So it's helpful. It was, we're thankful we have the 4 people, and this would be the last of the SAFER grant.
So really, though, I mean, overtime being what it is no essentially out of your control because of what the situation with the hospital closing. That has to just be added
Yeah.
in.
So if we didn't get those, so we had 3 personnel 24/7. So each ambulance always needs 2. If we didn't have that, if it wasn't successful in the grant writing, we wouldn't have that second ambulance man. Would be really in a bad spot. Yeah.
But just looking at like the overall budget, you said 18% increase, but significant portion of that is the increased overtime
Yeah,
out of your
It's the extra
control.
personnel.
Yeah.
And then the
It is.
personnel, so from a normal just increase year over year, that's only like $50,000.
Yeah, we
or
have some
something.
big chunks this year, the MOA, which is every 3 years you have a so, and you'll see that at the end, like this particular part of the budget is just under 10%, 9.59, just the last installment of the 240 for the SAFER grant.
Yeah, so other
Yeah,
than
you take
that-
away the big chunks, we're at like
We're down like under 5%, yeah,
which is
yep,
expected.
yeah. And it's just a lot of the bigger things just lined up this year, that's all it was. But we were lucky enough where the town, like it was the grant that we got, certainly saved the taxpayers in there just under, it was like 900.
Just shy of $1 million.
Just shy of $1 million, you know what I mean? So we were able to, get those 4 firefighters, save $1 million and, come starting July 1st, they'll be in the operating budget.
So you see 3 installments there, the 96, the 9, and then the 118, and now we're into the 4. In FY22 was actually when we hired them. We took them on Valentine's Day that year. We took them on the 14th of February, but we had enough to cover the cost for that first 5 months in the budget, so there was no initial installment needed. Thankfully, the grant was not matching like it typically is. For whatever reason, the federal government had waived the match for our grant, so we were able to access the $1 million without having to put in any money additional. What you're seeing for cost is all the non-grant coverage. So it's backfill of vacation time, it's sick days, it's education that wasn't covered. For paying people that hold advanced degrees. But their base wage, their health care, and the paramedic were all paid for those 3 years. So the town's been able to slowly roll into 96 up to 105, and then an additional 118 the next year, and now we're at the largest bite being the 240. So it's been a much easier transition than what it could have been. I think we're in a good spot.
Yeah, so that's the last of the big chunks. That comes up with the 18.82 as we started with.
Quick question. So, if we can go back to the very first slide,
That one?
yes, so the 308, the increase in salaries, wages of 308, 188, is that 240,000 included in that?
It's a mix. It's a mix of the 240 and the contract wage increases.
Okay,
So the way we know we ended up building the budget knowing exactly what we have to spend in the next 12 months to keep doing what we're doing, and then backing out, we know what was negotiated for a number,
okay,
and then backing out again what was the remainder of the SAFER grant being, we expected to be it comes out to actually 476, but the 240 gets us close enough. It gets us to 465. So that's the way that math was done.
okay, and then, and what I'm sort of then,
And then the same thing on the overtime line. The overtime line incorporates some of that increase because now you're adding 4 people to all the averages we use to figure out how much sick time, how much incentive time, how much of all the training, and then it's also the contract, because the contract, the higher wages drives up the overtime average. So it's a mix of those two.
okay, so, and then, so I guess what I'm getting at is that we are now including, or have always included, the wages of these firefighters that we've gotten from the SAFER grant. They're now incorporated into the regular
That
budget.
picture.
Correct.
Okay, that's.
So next year, there'll be no SAFER grant, number at all. They'll be in the operating budget. So when you see that regular, that's what they are. They just, if they get in steps, COLAs or whatever it is, that they'll be all in that. There'll be no more additional funds. They'll be just part of the group. Yep, there'll be no other funds. Just what the budget requires.
Okay, good, yeah, that's what I was sort of leading to, is that, so that we're now, it's incorporated into the budget.
Yep. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
So next one.
Yeah, and the next one just falls under the emergency management stuff. There were just 2 increases, which was the stipend for my emergency management director stipend. And then the other thing we added, it came out after draft 1 come out, but we have the code red system here in town that's offered to the town residents. And something that just came out was a tool that they could notify the people who choose to be on code red about the weather alerts. So that was an additional $550 we put into that to add that feature as of July 1st. Yes.
What's code red? That's
So-
weekended?
Yeah, so people can sign up for that. That's on the town's page website. So if you saw it, like for instance, I'm on it. Like the other day, the transfer station was closed, and you get an alert, a text or an email if you sign up for it. Yeah. So it's offered to a lot of the DPW uses it a lot if there's like a water main break and certain parts of town don't have it. We do.
Unexpected road closures due to emergencies.
Yep. So when it's managed by like the chiefs, the town manager's office can send messages out.
It's like a reverse 911.
Yeah, and so what this feature is, it's just a weather alert, but it's unique to your location. So if you're an Ayer resident and like there's a tornado watch for your specific area, and it's quick. So I thought, for $500 is a good added feature.
Does that include town hall closures for?
It's whatever they choose to send out. I don't think.
So it
I've never
originates from
seen-
town hall?
Yeah, well, there's like town hall can do it, police chief can do it, I can do it, yeah. It's just something the town pays for, yeah.
And senior center, do you know, or?
I don't think they have access.
Yeah,
to
I mean,
that.
I know.
But they could ask for that message to be sent out.
They
and it's
have their own call
It's all
out.
for whatever residents have signed up for that, yeah. And then the last thing, which has been updated, was the enterprise fund. Both direct costs, indirect costs have been updated. We had some slight increases on our supplies and services, like some of the services, what was it, the maintenance side of it had some,
Vents.
we were required to keep maintenance on all of our, equipment that's on each ambulance. It has to be, annually, what would you say?
You have to have preventative maintenance
Preventative
on all
maintenance
the
to it.
vents, the monitors.
Yeah. So when you're inspected, they come out and the people that do it put stickers on it. So we had some increases in that stuff between the two vehicles, and some slight increases to the supplies, just like $5,000 or $7,000, just, because of the added transport times and things like that. Things go, the price of the equipment, the supplies go up.
Yeah, you're seeing an increase. It looks like 17,000. And some of it's that car we talked about, the Intercept car, right? So you're gonna have to add a computer license for our reporting system. That car is gonna carry a cardiac monitor, so there's another an event. So there's a charge for that event to be PM'd every year and inspected, so it can be used. There's a one-time purchase. One of our stair chairs is finally out of date, so part of that 17,000 is a one-time. I think it's $6,900 purchase. So the year-over-year increase will be closer to 11,000, but that one-time purchase drives it up this year up to 17.
And I think talking with the finance manager, that the revenues, this is where all the ambulance bills go out, and this is where the revenue comes. It's been steady, as you can see. And I know the question always comes up. I've had conversations with her. There's always a little bit of tax levy, and Barbara, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's when she does it, it's conservative at 80%. I think is what you said. So, and there's always a little bit of a tax levy, but it's not that we don't have the money. It's built conservatively, so if down the road the revenues drop off a little, you still have, the funds in that. Correct, Robert?
Yes.
Because I know that question tends to come up maybe at town meeting wide, but it's just a smaller number, but.
So just for the ambulance enterprise fund, we're seeing an increase of some 60,000, roughly. 667 minus 606.
Yeah, I think that would be included, both direct and indirect costs, yeah.
Yes. That's everything.
Yep. And revenues have stayed good. We weren't sure how it would go, we certainly have longer transport times. But we thought we'd miss a few calls, which we have, meaning we give them to mutual aid or something like that, but the revenues have stayed steady. And Jeremy's the director of the ambulance, and maybe it's because it used to be an ALS 1 call, the way you bill it, and you're with them longer, so it might be billed at a higher level at ALS 2 because you cared for them longer, and that rose up to the next level, whether it's cardiac care or drugs that you use. So, but at least for the first 6 months, it's remained where we like to see it.
And I understand that we have an increase in reimbursements on the ambulances because of taking into account of mileage. We get a little bit more reimbursement because of the distance.
It could be. We get paid more. It's by the loaded mile. It's just one direction. So certainly what would be, say, a 3 mile average is either 12 or 16 now. So you're certainly getting paid more. But keep in mind wear and tear on the vehicles, you know what I mean, more fuel. So, but we do, get more money for that, yeah.
Okay. Well, I mean, it's small.
Yeah, and usually, like
It's-
Medicare rates are what we go by, and usually, I don't know what last year was, I haven't seen it yet, but it's usually in the 60 percentile. I think last year we were around 64% Medicare patients that we transported, so just under, right around 40% is everyone else, regular people, their own insurance, so we're limited to what we can get, if it's Medicare patients in the 60 percentile, which is, it's a much smaller rate, but our return's still been healthy.
So, we don't know if when or what will open at the,
Correct,
at there.
I would agree with that.
But so taking that out of the equation, where the ambulance use and wear and tear is now, correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought the ambulances were on like 10-year cycles as far as getting new ones.
Correct.
What would you say, would that impact the 10-year cycle if we
I
can't
believe it,
stay
I believe
there?
it, I believe it would be. I think that the paramedic card that we get will take, some of the curse off, but we won't be driving around, say, at least on one of them, but they're going mutual aid somewhere, they could take that and they're not driving an ambulance around, but I think that's something we'd have to look at for sure. Cause most recently, I was just in one of the ambulances that has 92,000 miles on it. We've never had an ambulance with 92,000, never. It's just that additional ride time just going everywhere, it's been crazy. So yeah, so that, we've always had the frontline ambulance every 5 years, it rotated back, but that second ambulance is probably doing a lot more calls than it ever have, so it might come down to an 8-year cycle perhaps. That's a great great question, yeah.
I think that one though is in the same category as like looking at that Ashoba money that ask me again in 12 months. Because it's, can I give you a best guess? I think the chief's probably right. Like you're probably inching that thing closer to an 8-year mark than a 10-year mark. But we're also gonna pick up this fly car now, so how much can I get that car on the road and use that $90,000 vehicle versus the $550,000 ambulance? And can I offset a lot of mileage, or is it just minimally gonna impact what we're pouring on mileage? I'm not sure. I'll be curious how that works for us.
Yeah. Like I said, 80%, 83% of our calls used to just go to Neshoba, so the mileage was really short, and the ambulances, like, just the last few days have been crazy. I think they did 12 yesterday, 20 the day before. It's just been crazy. And knowing that you go 12 or 16 miles, sometimes even more. I think they've been to Worcester a few times.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I see them, it seems like no matter where I am
Yeah,
driving,
it
I
is.
pass it one.
It's constant. Yeah, somebody sent us a picture. They were both parked at Leominster not too long ago together, side by side.
Yeah.
Yep.
But I think it's great. We just have to see what the next 6 to 12 months, UMass has come forward as an operator. We have to see where, what the next step is, how that all, ends up going.
Are we keeping a little file of like pictures of both ambulances at Leominster and stuff like that?
It's funny, we do get them though.
Somebody sent
The
it to
Leominster chief sent me one. It was our 2 ambulances, the Pepperell ambulance and the Fitchburg ambulance in Leominster, because he's like, and his ambulances were busy. So we went up there, he's like, what's going on? And sometimes they get up there and they're in line. There's 4 that back up to where they unload the patients, and there's, 2 or 3 waiting at sometimes at Leominster, yeah.
I mean, I say that half quarter jokingly, but sometimes a picture would be worth,
Yeah.
what is this need that we have? Here's a picture showing you this,
We've had some pictures, like when they've done, our statistics that they've posted on Facebook or something, they've done that with a picture of, the 4 ambulances. Yep.
How are the wait times? Have you seen a significant uptick of those?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
So,
On average?
in people, I think, have still a misconception of what it means when you call an ambulance, right? They call an ambulance, they're expecting to get right to the ER, get right in, I'm going to go to the front of the line, and that is not the case anymore. Very often now we are bringing you to the waiting room, and you're being offloaded from our cot into one of their wheelchairs or recliners, depending on what hospital you're in, and you're in the waiting room just like everybody else that came by a personal car. Once you're triaged, because we triage you, and that's how we transport you, and then they will re-triage you based on who they have for a patient population. And so it varies dramatically day to day, hour to hour. Today, it's been pretty quick turnarounds.
Yeah.
Last week, when we were busy and everybody around us was busy, there was significant delays. But it comes and goes like that. Right now you're in the middle of a pretty nasty norovirus, a lot of flu, a lot of COVID. So there's a lot of admissions and a lot of people that are staying. So those rooms aren't clearing out readily. So those delays happen. And then you get other days where it's, all slips and falls and people are in and out, and it's not a big deal.
And it can be either hospital. They were down there 12:30 at night and they had to wait a half an hour, in Concord. So it's just, like I said, time It's whether everyone's busy, it's no rhyme, no reason.
So
When
the,
it's busy though, it's busy.
Oh, yeah.
so the key though is that you folks have to wait also?
Yeah, so we're not necessarily just allowed to offload you somewhere, right? So once the ambulance backs in, we go to admission just like everybody else. And if they're not busy, they'll take you right away and they'll assign us a room or a chair and wherever you're going. But if they're busy, they call holding the wall. You might stand there for 15 minutes while you wait. So we continue the care for that patient. You know, we're monitoring them still on our monitor, on our oxygen, whatever's going on. You know, clearly if you're a critical patient, you're right in. You know, you're a stroke, cardiac arrest, you're an MI, you're right to the front of the line. But if you're, you know, run of the mill, like I slipped and fell and my back hurts, you might wait a little bit. You know, depending on what else is going on at the time. And you know, so they free us up as soon as their staff can. Like it's not like we stand there and get forgotten. We're definitely in the way.
Yeah.
And they'll get to us as soon as they can because they know they got to get us cleared up in return. But it comes and goes, and there's no way to predict that for us. You know, thankfully, when the show was open, most of our calls were in the show, right? You know, so it was in the 80%, right?
Yeah.
And then you as a patient, you got a choice to go about 15 miles beyond, or 15 minutes beyond that. So your two options were Leominster or Emerson if you did not want to go to the show or for whatever reason. Now, our closest is Leominster, so your 15 minutes beyond Leominster is a lot of options. So, you know, we'll try to coach people into making good decisions. Like, oh, you got an Emerson doctor, you want to go there? Like, we can tell you how busy it is. I was there an hour ago, and maybe we don't want to go to Leominster for this one, or we were just up at Leominster and it was not busy. Well, let's run right up the street. It's the closest place we can get you to right now. So we try to help coach that decision. It's always the patient's choice. We don't, unless you're having one of those things that we have to follow protocol for and take you to a specific hospital. It's always the patient choice, but we just try to encourage them based on what we know is going on that day. Sometimes we know, sometimes we don't.
And just, go ahead.
Sorry, I'm just looking at your table and trying to understand it. So the, yeah, it is the page that's up there. So you have the fiscal year 24 actual, and then the current fiscal year 25 actual as of November 22, 2024, right? Now, sorry, yeah, it's actually, I'm looking at that column and then the next column. Forget about the fiscal year 24 actual, that's passed. But the current 25, fiscal year 25 actual, and then the original fiscal 25 budget. So for you talk about revenue, that's the line, the ambulance indirect cost reimbursement, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's your revenue, right?
Yep.
So, so for these two, they are the same. So,
May I clarify?
yeah,
So there's no representation on this particular, through you, Kurt?
Yes.
There's no, revenues on this. This is just your expense side at this time. So the indirect costs, the reason they're the same for as of 11/22 in the budget is because they simply are fully expended right at the beginning of the year. It pays back the omnibus budget or the general fund. So
yeah, so this is their expense, it's not their revenue.
this is not any revenue, this is all just expenses, and the indirect cost is the amount that, because all the firefighters are budgeted in the omnibus budget that you saw earlier.
So they just
This
spend all their
pays it
money at
back.
the beginning of the fiscal year,
Yeah.
by November. So that's why I was wondering, there's no more update, like from November to now.
Between 5 and 6.
So our revenues for fiscal '25 were estimated at $490,000, and as of January 31st, we're already up a little over $460,000. So we're going to exceed our estimated revenues
see.
for this year.
Yeah, but none of the numbers here actually represent revenue.
No.
No.
Yeah.
As part of the process, we usually do the expense side first, and then the revenues will come at around the same time draft 3 comes out.
Okay, that makes more sense. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Great, thank you.
And there's no way to drag down over time because I guess, yeah.
Well, I think you just sort of,
At least we're not doing the overtime the way that the Boston Globe talk about, like, some of the, I guess, the city of Boston, sound like their overtime budget keep on growing at a very fast clip.
Yeah, so that overtime, a good example is just on Tuesday, they did 20 medicals, meaning 20 times the ambulance went out. So that's when we talk about the callback, like they're going to and from, you think about that, like they're never here probably at, for extended periods. So that's where we want the off-duty people, the called people to come back and man, so there's someone there for that next call.
So that's where the overtime comes.
Yeah.
Because people were outside and then you need someone to stay.
Yeah, and they-
Somebody to come back to cover
Yeah, somebody to
what's
come
left.
back, yeah.
Yep.
And like most of the time, like we had 3 this afternoon, we always were really good about getting someone there for that third call. We have, the engine can go, which did today. We use my old chief's car as that next car out to go to a medical. So that's what we want them to come back and be able to do that. Even though we have to have a mutual aid ambulance, we always want to make sure. Because I think if we can cover 3, we're doing really good. Occasionally you get, it's quick. You get 4 in a row and, it's chaos. But we usually can manage them pretty good.
great.
And
Okay.
that's the end of the presentation.
Any other questions for the chief?
So overtime people, I think I've asked this before, but I forgot a little bit the details. When you call someone in, they have to at least stay a minimum of time block, right? You can't say that, oh, the ambulance come back, I don't need you anymore.
No, we do that.
We do that.
Oh, really?
It's hour for hour. There was some minor changes in the upcoming contract, so when the ambulances are out, say they do come back and they have to go on an ambulance call rather than just getting that 1 or 2 hours, they get a minimum of 3, but by the time you go to and from and transport, so there were some small variations to that, but otherwise it's hour for hour.
Good bit of bargaining there.
It's been like that the entire time we've run an ambulance.
Yep.
Oh,
Hour for
okay.
hour, yeah.
Yeah.
There are other places, they have larger blocks, 2 hours, 4 hours, but for here where it's often, I think at some point, they could be there 40 minutes and that's it. Sometimes they're there an hour and 20, it just varies so much. And it's not too often they come back and that they don't do anything either. There's not another call.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, again, thank you to the chief and deputy for your presentations. Thank you to all that you do and to all that your staff does.
Kudos to the staff, they're keeping up with it, we'll see how the hospitals thing all plays out, hopefully in the next few months.
Okay, guess we'll go ahead and then move on to the rest of our agenda. Excuse me. So the next item on our agenda is the budget FY 2026 update. We really don't have anything except what I sort of mentioned a little bit earlier, that Robert, the town manager, sent an email today with draft 2 of the budget. So, we'll be,
This afternoon, right?
yeah, it just came out this afternoon, so. So then that leads us into our next item, which will be, so for our next meeting, which will be on Thursday. Let me pull this up because. Thursday, March 6th will be our next meeting. Okay, it's 6 p.m. Okay, going to open the floor to any public comments. Do we have any? We don't have anyone on Zoom.
We do. We have one member of the public, but
Oh,
I don't.
I have one question.
oh, yes, Sarah.
It's Sarah Wizzy, 11 Broughton Shirley Road. And it's fine if you can't answer it, but I was just wondering on the fire chief presentation, when they were going over the EMS budget, I think there's there's that one salary. Is the deputy fire chief our EMS salary there?
Can I clarify that? Is that the second one? It's just an error in that should be emergency management, and that's been corrected as of today. So what that is, that salary is mine as fire chief. I'm also the emergency management director, and I get a stipend for that. So that's what you see. And that's just I straightened that out today with the finance manager. It's just labeled incorrectly, but it's been corrected as of today. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, that does answer my question. I wasn't sure if it was a separate person besides,
Yep. No,
the administration.
No.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Great, thank you, Sarah.
It's the one back, it's that one right there. They're all labeled as EMS, they all should be labeled EMD.
EMD. See, it says emergency services and the EMS salaries. It now says EMD. Barbara changed that today.
Yep, I have the accountant change it, so
Yep.
it'll pull up
Yeah.
differently in the future.
Yep.
Okay.
All right. I was gonna mention that and I failed to, but that's been corrected.
Okay, good. Thank you, Sarah. So, anyone else? Max? You the only other person joining us? Okay. Then I think we've covered everything on the agenda then.
I motion we adjourn.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, our meeting is adjourned as of 6:50 PM.